Welcome to footballgameplan.com, where football makes sense. That's Azar, the playbook Emery Hunt, and I'm Tyler Mirkovich, bringing you an FCS preview of the independent teams. Let's start off with the Bulldogs of Bryant. Marty Fine in his 6th year, coming off a 7-4 year, 19 starters return, and quarterback Kurt Spear is going to take over for Jay Graber, and their top tailback Jarrell Smith, over 6 yards per carry, is in tow.
Well, one thing, they do have two good running backs. Jarrell Smith is the starter, nearly 1,300 yards last season, and Lindsey Gamble chipped in with 800 yards and 4 touchdowns. So the new quarterback is going to have the luxury of having two great running backs to work with and a veteran offensive line. So they're going to pass block and run block up front. Solid offensive line. They have two solid receivers on the flanks.
Defensive side of the ball, led by linebacker Paul Polamski and free safety Andre White. Can their defense stay intact from last year?
10 starters return off a defense that gave up 99 yards rushing a game, 3.1 yards per carry. That's impressive for a defense, and when you get the majority of those guys back, they're going to grow. The defensive line is outstanding. You look at defensive tackle Pat Gaither, real good player. Defensive end Don Smith, 8.5 sacks. So I like that defense to improve of those numbers. And you mentioned the linebacker Paul Polamski. That's a real good player. 3 interceptions, 3 sacks, and 67 tackles.
Savannah State, the Tigers, led by Robert Wells, coming off a 5-7 year, 16 returning starters. Quarterback Kervin Curry is going to be heading that offense, as behind 4 starters with experience on the offensive line.
One thing, him and Justin Babb had 1,200 yards combined. Justin Babb is the running back, and Curry is the quarterback. But Curry has to improve on his accuracy. He threw a lot of interceptions last season. He has to get that number up to like 58 to 60%. 13 touchdowns last season rushing. He just has to become a little bit more accurate with the football. That's the only problem I have with Curry, but he's a tremendous leader. You look at wide receiver Armand Dixon is an explosive player, so they're going to have some speed out there on the outside.
Safety Darren Hunter led the secondary with 5 picks, and Antoine Allen, 73 tackles and 4.5 tackles for loss. Those are 2 dynamos in the secondary.
And look at the secondary. They lose a lot of key members, so I think they're going to take a step back in the secondary. The pass defense will be a problem now. Last year was a strength. Sophomore Darren Hunter, 5 interceptions, special player, defensive lineman Vince Cochran knows his way around the backfield. 5 tackles for loss last season. My only question was Savannah State. They have 2 big games at Livingstone on September 15th, and they at NC's North Carolina Central later in November. So those are 2 big key games on their schedule.
Speaking of North Carolina Central, the Eagles, led by Mose Risen, 4-7 last year, 18 returning starters. Quarterback Keon Williams will battle out Michael Johnson for the starting job. Tony McCord, 41 touchdowns, sick.
Yeah, one thing they have to find a running game. 92 yards last season per game on offense, 2.6 yards a carry. They need to improve their running game if they're going to make any noise this season in FCS. But you got wide receiver Will Scott, 800 yards, 7 touchdowns. You also bring in Deshaun Spears. He's also a very good punt returner. So those are key playmakers. But the question I have is, can quarterback Michael Johnson take the next step in his development?
Cornerback David Ingram with 4 interceptions last year. Can their defense step up?
They have a very experienced secondary. A lot of good players back there. They only allow 50% of passes being completed back there in the secondary. It's a really good group. Safety Derek Harvey, Raheem Vick is a good safety as well too. You look at the cornerback, they have David Ingram, and I like their secondary. They have to improve on the defensive line, get some pass rush, but I do like linebacker Donald Laster, 40 tackles last season and 6 sacks. So if they can get a pressure up front defensively and slow down that opposing team's rushing attack, I think they'll be well on defense.
One FBS opponent on their schedule are the Blue Devils of Duke in Durham. Can they win?
I don't think they can beat Duke. They have a tough schedule. They have 7 road games. They go at App State, at Duke, and at Hampton. That's 3 tough games on their schedule, plus in combination with the 7 road games.
The old Dominion Monarchs making their debut in FCS. Offensive coordinator of Maine, Bobby Wilder, takes over. he's going to implement a spread offense.
Well, welcome to football, Old Dominion. You know, they're in a good situation. They're going to have a real good team in the future because that's a real good area of Norfolk, Virginia. This enrollment is already upwards to like 25,000 students on campus. Plus, they have real nice facilities. They have a big stadium, and there's a lot of talent in the Norfolk, Virginia area. And speaking what you said on offense, you know, you're going to see a lot of freshmen, a lot of JUCO transfers. You look at running backs Jamal Parham and Desmond Williams going to play. They have 10 freshman wide receivers. So that's one thing that they have to settle on the quarterback. But you do have a lot of JUCO guys coming to play that offensive line. So he's going to build from the interior and work his way back.
Defensive side of the ball, Shante Green, Javon Curse's brother on the defensive line. And we're hearing sophomore Mateus Porter is going to be their linebacker.
Well, Javon Curse's brother, Shante Green, 13 sacks last season as a junior college player. I'm interested to see their defensive line. They're going to run a 4-3. They're going to get a lot of JUCO players in there, so they're going to try to have success in a hurry. So I like to see that. That's going to be good for their defense because if they can run the ball and play defense, they'll surprise some people this year. And they have a schedule, you know, that's conducive to them, you know, being successful. I think they'll do better than Campbell did last year. The school Campbell's, the Campbell University, 1-10. I think they'll do better. Campbell had a real tough spot starting their football program last season, but I think Old Dominion, with their enrollment in that area, they're going to get a lot of good talent.
ODU independent for now, but they will join the Colonial Athletic Association in 2011. Schedule-wise, what is the outlook for the Monarchs?
Starting the program is tough because you have to get guys to rally around and play together, and this is an interesting year for these guys. So they're going to get some victories. They're going to look at, they have a Division II school on their schedule, but I just look for them just to, you know, take their lumps this season. But next year and the year after, watch out for Old Dominion.
That's our independent preview for the FCS. For more small college breakdown and in-depth analysis, visit footballgameplan.com/smallcolleges.